Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. This is the Sikh History Series podcast, Season 3, the Chhota Ghallughara. In 1746, the pages of Sikh history were once again soaked in blood, as it was the year in which the Chhota Ghallughara took place. Tens and thousands of Sikhs, including women and children, were butchered and killed. And this was one of the most unforgettable and tragic events in Sikh history. And in this season of the podcast, we shall be paying homage to these brave, valiant Shaheeds and having a glimpse into the hardships they suffered and what they had to go through and what happened during those dark days. The Chhota Ghallughara takes place in 1746, and in the year before, in 1745, Yahya Khan, the son of Zakaria Khan, takes governorship of Lahore. Now, this was already a very difficult and volatile time for the Sikhs, as they were being persecuted by Mughals, and many Sikhs had previously been killed and made Shaheed. It was Yahya Khan's father, Zakaria Khan, who created a graded scale of rewards for the killing and destruction of Sikhs. A shawl, a blanket, was rewarded for the cutting of a Sikh's hair, 10 rupees for information on the whereabouts of a Sikh, and 50 rupees for a Sikh scalp or decapitated Sikh head. Along with this, the plunder of Sikh homes was made lawful. The giving of shelter to Sikhs was outlawed. Withholding information about the movements of a Singh warrior was made a capital offence worthy of the death penalty. And the Sikhs were fighting for their faith, to be able to preserve their dharam and practice their faith freely. The Khalsa warriors lived as outlaws. And during this time in 1745, inadequate collections of revenue had further infuriated the Hukumat, the ruling authorities in Punjab, which included Lahore. They blamed Sikhs for this and decided to kill the Sikhs in a more organised and systematic manner than before. New orders were issued that stated, all Sikhs are now barred entry into their holy shrine, Sri Harmandir Sahib. Any and all prominent Sikhs should be arrested and killed. Any Sikh or any Singh warrior seen anywhere should be killed immediately. Shoot on sight orders were issued. Headhunters, paid mercenaries, and warriors for hire from across the land were brought in to exterminate the Sikh populace. To further implement these fanatic policies, the immoral and evil Lakhpat Rai was brought in, and he took up the role of Revenue Finance Minister of Lahore. And together, Yahya Khan and Lakhpat Rai had their hearts set on a total destruction and slaughtering of the Sikhs. Once again, they wanted the streets to run red in blood of the Sikhs. So, in late 1745, under the governorship of Yahya Khan, the Hukumat was trying to kill and exterminate all the Sikhs, especially the Jathe of Singhs that exist. Even if they were moving about very peacefully, they were to be killed. And under these dire circumstances, these Jathe of Singh and Nihang Dals, who would fight back against such oppression and evil, took shelter in forests, deserts, mountainous areas, as well as swamplands and the wild marshy areas on the banks of rivers. These Jathe lived in such places in extreme difficulty and punishingly hard conditions, taking shelter in their shacks and in the dens of jaguars and leopards, as well as caves, some resting camouflaged and hidden in long reeds, others in the layers of wolves or bears, constantly battling the harsh environment as well as the wild animals who lived in these areas, hiding in the bushes and the overgrowth growing on the banks of rivers. Some Singhs lived on islands in the middle of rivers, surrounded by water on all sides. The Mughal soldiers were continuously trying to locate them in these hideouts and killing anyone they saw on sight, shooting at the Singhs when on sight, showering bullets upon them, smoking them out of these dens and setting fire to such places. To escape these attacks, the Singhs hiding and living in the marshlands and on the riverbanks would jump into the river, diving deep to escape, but as soon as they came up for air, the Mughal soldiers would rain bullets down upon them, bullets and arrows, taking their heads out of the water to breathe and then again dive deep into the water to escape these bullets and arrows. The Singhs used to swim away, letting the current take them downstream. The plight of the Sikhs at this time is beyond imagination and description. And under such horrific circumstances, there was nowhere for the Singhs to go. And when the Jathe of Singhs would meet each other, they would discuss what to do or what can they do. Some suggested spreading thin and splitting up even more. Others suggested leaving the area altogether. But even then, where could they go when they're being hunted and everyone is out to get them? So the Khalsa warriors decided to come together, to band together and to fight back. And to fight this evil enemy, this was the only way. This was the Khalsa way. Through the use of guerrilla warfare tactics, the Khalsa Nihang Singh warriors started invading the Mughal troop encampments, going into the lion's den. When the Mughals thought they were safe and under control, the Khalsa would go in and decimate the enemy, hacking them to bits, snatching weapons, horses and supplies. And when the enemy seemed to gather their wits about them, the Singhs would leave and go into their hideouts. And just when they thought it was over, another Jatha of Bajrangi Cobra Singhs would attack and invade the Mughal encampment. Sometimes the Singhs would steal cattle and tie torches to their horns. And at night, from a distance, it would look like two torch bearers approaching. And they would do this with many cattle in the dark at night and approach the Mughal encampments. The Mughals, seeing this, would think there are many of them coming and would gather their forces and go out to meet them to battle. And as they did, the Singhs would enter the camp from the other side, stealing weapons and supplies, taking horses and even poisoning the Mughal food supply. These were the Khalsa guerrilla warfare tactics used. And during this time, the Singhs lived on horseback, they died on horseback and they slept on horseback, never leaving the saddle. Because the Singhs were always roaming on horseback, the Mughals found it impossible to keep track of their numbers, and they would overestimate their number, as they thought it was impossible for such small groups of Singhs to be in so many places and constantly be fighting and roaming and harassing us. The Singhs were especially active at night, and they managed to avenge the oppression taking place, and to get revenge for the killing of so many innocent Sikhs. The Singhs killed many wicked Mughals. During the day when the Mughals got together to attack them, the Singhs would tactically retreat into the jungles and marshlands, and the Mughals were scared to enter the marshlands and jungles. And if they were to enter, the Singhs would rally together and kill them. The Singhs would then come out of the marshlands when it was safe and convenient for them to do so. And in this way, they devastated the various Mughal encampments on all sides, from Lahore to Kasur to Delhi. The Singhs plundered the roads to Delhi and Lahore, robbing and plundering any passing Mughal forces. The legend of the Akali Singhs grew, and soon Mughals were afraid to take certain paths and routes due to the fear of these Akali Nihang Singh warriors. This is how the Singhs managed to create such commotion and pass this difficult time, surviving on plundered goods, while protecting the Panth and taking vengeance and revenge for the many atrocities committed by the Mughals. The Mughal forces would feel enraged on seeing the Singhs, and on seeing the huge army forces the Singhs would run. At other times they chose to engage and attack and plunder. The Singhs would attack, then escape, fight, then turn away, then advance again, hiding and attacking. The Singhs fought. How else could so few deal with such large numbers and organised armies? The Singhs stalked and killed the Mughals like hungry leopards and tigers. The Akali Nihang Singhs also attacked under the midday sun, a time which for others was a siesta time to relax and sleep in the middle of the day in the heat, whereas the attitude of the Khalsa was do or die always. The Mughal soldiers were mostly mercenaries who aimed to live through the battle. Thus, most Mughal soldiers were reluctant to face the Akali Nihang Singhs. One is a well-fed warrior fighting for a wage. The other is a warrior of the Guru fighting for survival, fighting for their dharam, fighting for their people, fighting for sovereignty. The Singhs knew not the taste of salt, nor clarified butter. A warm meal or a good night's sleep was rare for them. Many of the Singhs lacked clothing and went around bare-chested with no armour. They lacked gunpowder and lead, and if they got sick, they died. There was no access to medicine or care. They only lived on the hope of the Guru's word. This was the only treasure they had. The Singhs were unable to do sanskar and cremate the bodies of their fellow Shaheed warrior brothers, so they would commit the Shaheed Singhs' bodies to the water in the rivers, doing jal pravah of their bodies. And in spite of these hardest of times, the Singhs grew in number day by day. Every day and every night, more Singhs joined the cause. Pain and suffering, fighting, death and fatigue. They counted them all as nothing. And it was during these dark days and difficult times in which the Akalis developed their Sikh bravado language, the Gargaj Bole, the words that thunder. And these Bole transformed the Khalsa mannerisms completely. There was still internal humility and subjugation to truth, but outward humility became replaced by fierce, aggressive demeanours intended to terrify their enemies. They became the physical manifestation of the warrior spirit Biras. This wasn't arrogance but pride and full confidence in their mission to obtain sovereignty and be able to live free one day. And this brings us to the end of this episode of the podcast. The plight of the Singhs. And in the next episode we shall go on to hear about how the Singhs killed the wicked Chhota Rai, the brother of Lakhpat Rai, whom both are responsible for the deaths and killings of many Sikhs, including women and children. As always, bol chuk maaf karna. Please forgive any shortcomings, and please share this podcast and help spread our great history. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.